right, so welcome to our adoption counseling session. What we're going to do in this session is we're going to take a look over your kitten's medical records as they are right now and answer any questions that might come up for you. And then we'll go through a slideshow together to talk about introducing the kitties into your home. At the end of that, I'll approve you in the online system and you'll be able to do your contract and payment. Sound good?
That sounds great.
Awesome. And since both of these are going to be pre-adoptions, you'll be able to decide ahead of time if you want to purchase pain medication for those kitties for after their surgery. Cool.
Sounds good.
All right. We're going to start with Cupid's medical records. Is that showing up for everyone all right?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay. So as you can see, Cupid hasn't been neutered yet, but that's coming up on the 24th, I believe, is the surgery date.
Mm-hmm.
And once he does get that neuter surgery completed, then of course it's going to say yes underneath spayed and neutered, and there's going to be a microchip number that shows up here.
Fabulous.
And we will register the microchip for you. You'll get a separate email about it probably a week or so after the adoption, and there'll be a link in that email that you can click to set up a free account with the microchip registry, and it'll just import the cat right into your account because we do the registration on the back end.
Great.
So it makes it super easy.
Thank you.
FELV, though, is one you probably want to get tested at some point. FELV is feline leukemia virus, and that's present in about 1 to 2% of the cats in our local population, so it's not very common, but it is something that can be transferred through social contact from one cat to another, and it impacts their lifespan more. Oftentimes cats that have the active form of the FELV infection can have an average lifespan after diagnosis of 3 or 4 years. So that's something that if they did have it, you would want to be aware of it. We recommend getting that testing done with your vet, or you can pay to have it done at the time of the neuter surgery, and we'll do it at CAT. And I believe the cost for the FELV testing is $35. So if you do want to opt for that, let me know and we'll take care of the payment at the end of the session. But I'll make sure and make note of that for the hospital team. Okay, so here's some notes about the upper respiratory infection that the kitty had, but he's better now. What I really like about these notes is it tells you what kinds of things would be cause for concern to call your vet and what kinds of things typically resolve on their own. And so this is applicable for all kittens. Haley, your kittens don't have upper respiratory infection that we know of, but the same kind of symptoms will be something you want to keep an eye out for. So if you see sneezing, runny eyes, mild lethargy, decreased appetite, occasional cough, mild tongue ulcer, those are the kinds of things that usually resolve on their own. But if you see thick or discolored nasal or eye discharge, difficulty breathing, moderate to severe lethargy, no appetite, drooling, or pain, that's something you'd want to give your vet a call about and try to get an appointment right away. We do provide some amount of support to adopters within 2 weeks of adoption at our shelter clinic, but we're usually not able to respond to urgent requests. So I usually recommend that if you have any concerns about your kitten's health, give your regular veterinarian a call. And if they say it doesn't sound super urgent, then you can potentially schedule a vet appointment with CAT. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. And if you do have a vet appointment with CAT, so it says it here, an adopter can bring the cat back to the shelter within 2 weeks of adoption for a follow-up. Or of course, you can go to your regular veterinarian at any time. CAT offers free exams to adopted cats for up to 2 weeks after adoption. There are fees for medications and diagnostic tests. So just something to be aware of. If you do want to bring the cat in within that 2 weeks following adoption for something that's not necessarily urgent, then you can definitely do that. Any vaccines or treatments that are needed, you would have to pay for, but the vet visit would be free.
Okay.
So then this section shows all the treatments that have already been done, and these are the ones that are coming up due. And it looks like this vaccine and this dewormer are going to be due before the neuter surgery, so they will have been taken care of by the time he's getting neutered.
Okay.
But this one that's due in November will not have been completed. So what I would recommend is to get in touch with your clinic and set up to have that rabies vaccine done. Okay. But this one you'll need to get in touch with a vet for. That's the next FVRCP vaccine in the series.
Okay.
And I would actually go ahead and call to set up an appointment ahead of time before you even bring home your kitty, just because I know vets can be a little bit busy at this point in time. So hopefully that'll give you enough wiggle room that you can get that vaccine done close to the due date.
Okay.
I believe with the rabies vaccine, there's some flexibility in the due date, so it might be possible to get them both done at the same appointment. I just know it's important to get the FVRCP done close to its due date, because otherwise sometimes the series has to get started over again, and that's a pain in the butt that you don't need to deal with.
Okay.
So any questions about the medical records?
No, I really
Feel good?
appreciate the, yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
And you will get an updated copy sent to you on the day of the spay neuter surgery. So rather than me sending you this one that says that he's not neutered, I'm going to hold off and you'll get a copy from the hospital at the time of his neuter surgery.
Okay, that sounds good.
So when we're all done here, I'm going to approve you in the online system, and it's going to send you an email with a button that says click here to sign your contract. So that's going to prompt you to get that all taken care of ahead of time. And that's where you will opt for a cardboard carrier if you decide that you want one and you don't have a carrier you already plan on using. And that's also where you'll opt for pain medications if you want to purchase those for the kitties following surgery. And if you do want to purchase those, let me know and I'll go through the instructions on those separately. So when you're signing the contract, it's just going to remind you of our policies that we want to keep our kitties indoors only and not declaw them so they can live their best life. You'll be able to skim through their medical records again and then sign down at the bottom when you're doing the online contract. Looked at the medical records already. You will get a certificate when you take home your new kitty that's good for a free initial exam at a local veterinary clinic. It doesn't cover any vaccines or treatments that are needed, but it gets you in the door for that kind of initial wellness exam to help encourage you to establish a relationship with your regular vet. We talked about the FELV testing, so we'll hang on afterwards, Haley, and we'll get that taken care of for your two kitties. Okay. So what we're doing right now is technically called a pre-adoption, which means you'll pick them up on the day of their surgery. So for Shanice, that's the 24th, and for Haley, that's the 28th for your kittens. And you will get surgery discharge instructions on the day of surgery. The gist of it is to not have your kitten bouncing off the walls. You want to try to give them the opportunity to heal for 7 to 10 days following surgery. Of course, they're going to play. You're not going to stop them from playing, but we just want to try to have that play be low impact so that they can completely, fully heal. You can opt for pain medication and or one of those Elizabethan cone type recovery collars if you want to during the time you're doing your online checkup. So just give me a heads up if you decide you want to opt for that pain medication, and I'll make sure and read you the instructions. When you first bring home your new kitty, you'll want to set them up in a safe room or base camp, so a separate room of your house where it's nice and quiet and they can feel safe and not feel overwhelmed by the whole new environment where danger could be lurking in any corner. So since you both have some resident pets in your home, you could use a bathroom as your introduction space, but you might want to choose a little bit bigger room just in case the introductions take a little bit more time. You don't have to feel guilty about keeping the kitten in the bathroom for 3 weeks or however long it might take. So I would try to choose a room that isn't necessarily your resident pet's favorite area, because we don't want to displace them from their core territory. And just set up everything that the kitties need in that room. So litter box, food, water, toys, scratcher, and allow them to get totally comfortable in that room before we start introducing them to other rooms in the house and eventually to your resident pets.
Okay.
I don't want to tell you, a number as far as how much time it's going to take, because if I do tell you a number, chances are it's going to be wrong. So your results may vary. It could take anywhere from a couple of weeks to a few months. The important thing is to really take it at the pace of the individual animals and make sure that they feel comfortable, because we want to set them up for a successful relationship. So while the kitty's in the safe room is a great time to go around the rest of the house and make sure that it's ready for young kitten energy. They're going to climb and explore and squeeze themselves into every possible crevice. So we want to make sure that the house is going to be safe for them. If you do have more than one cat in the home, so for you, Haley, you'll want to make sure and duplicate resources and spread them out to different areas of the home so that if your older kitty wants to get away from the kittens, they can go and hang out in a quiet area and the kittens can still have access to a litter box or a cat tower or scratching post without there being any sense of competition. I find that goes a long ways towards reducing conflict with cats. As far as meal times go, we typically do 2 meals a day because it is usually convenient for most people's schedule. We do both wet and dry food because they each have advantages. And you'll get a free bag of dry food to take home to get you started. And Haley, you'll actually get 2 since you're getting 2 kittens. These are the portion sizes that we're using. So for kittens, we do a 1/4 cup of dry twice a day. So that means a 1/2 cup for the day for each kitty, and then 1/2 a small can of wet. So it'd be 1 small can of wet food for the day. We do tend to use kitten food for the first year of their life because it does have a lot of extra nutrients that help them to grow. So ideally, we don't want your adult cat to eat the kitten food. You'll definitely need to supervise during meal times and have different feeding stations. As far as playtime goes, oh my gosh, that's the best part about having kittens. I love playing with kittens, but of course we don't want our hands to be a target for their amazing hunting activities. So we recommend those long wand toys or toys with a big string that you can use when you're supervising and playing with the kitten. And I like to take advantage of their natural activity rhythm. So hunt, eat, groom, and sleep. The playtime is their hunting, then you can feed them a meal, and then they're naturally just gonna wind down and take a nap. It works great, especially if you're able to do that right before bed. Now, if you're like me and you like to feed them when you get home from work, but you don't go to bed for several hours later, then one thing that can help is reserving back a portion of their food and putting it into a puzzle feeder right before you go to bed. That way, if they get the munchies at 4 a.m., they have something that they can snack on without going and poking you in the face and waking you up at a ridiculous hour of the morning when no one wants to be awake. And for puzzle feeders, you can use something as simple as like an egg carton with dry food sprinkled in it, or an ice cube tray if you want something that's plastic and you can clean it. You could even put wet food into it if it's an ice cube tray, so that works well. Since, Haley, you have an older cat in the home, I would recommend using the adult cat's food in puzzle feeders because you don't really want the adult cat to eat kitten food. It's extra fattening, but it's not going to hurt anything if the kitten eats adult food. So that's what I would do, is put the adult cat's food into the puzzle feeders before bed. And for you, Shani, since you've got doggies in the home, I would make sure that whatever puzzle feeders you get, that you place them up high. And if you're using a lightweight puzzle feeder like an egg carton, you might try placing it in something heavy like a casserole dish on a table, so that way it's not going anywhere.
Okay, that's a good idea.
So the next thing is litter boxes. So we like to recommend a litter box that's nice and big enough that the kitties can turn around in it easily. Ideally 1.5 times as long as the cat's body. Most of the litter boxes you can find at a pet store are just fine for kittens, but they may or may not be big enough for your kitties once they're full grown. So if you need options for them when they're a little bit bigger, I like to recommend the under the bed storage tubs or cement mixing trays. They're super cheap. You can buy them at a hardware store or general store, and they're like 3 feet long and 2 feet wide, so nice and big, plenty of space that the cat can easily get in there and turn around. And if you accidentally forget to scoop the litter box one night, there's still a little bit of clean surface area because it's so big. So it's kind of a nice plus of having a larger litter box. Open top is super important so that kitties can't ambush one another in the litter box, or dogs can't stick their head in and trap the kitty inside. Unscented litter and scooping it each day, making sure that there's enough boxes in your home. So if you have 2 cats, ideally in a perfect world, you'd have 3 separate litter box stations. The golden rule is like 1 per cat plus an extra. It's not always possible, but I usually find that the more litter boxes you have in different parts of your home, the less likely you are to have issues later on down the road. If you do want to make any changes, either to food or litter box setup, there's kind of two schools of thought. One is make changes gradually, and the other is to offer the cats choice. Whenever possible, I love to be able to offer the cat a choice. That way, if they don't like the new litter and I'm offering them two choices side by side, then they'll just go into the old litter box rather than going on the floor. If you do need to make a change because they've discontinued your cat's favorite brand of food, then that's where you want to implement that gradual change of mix in a little at first and then eventually go over to the new variety. As far as scratching goes, scratching is a totally natural thing for cats to do. Not only does it sharpen their claws and keep them fresh, but it's kind of a way that they write messages and say like, Jasper was here. This is my home. So we want them to be able to do that, but ideally not on your furniture. So I like to set up the environment so that success is almost automatic for them. I like to provide a scratcher in each of the rooms where I plan on spending a lot of my time, because that's where the cat's going to want to be. They want to hang out with you, like this guy here. It could be a simple cardboard scratcher, or it could be something that's a bit more sturdy, like a cat tree or a cone like that little kitten is using. It's great if you can have at least one that's nice and tall, long enough for the cat to get a full body stretch. Rough textures are usually appreciated the most, so like sisal or corrugated cardboard. Those can work really well. So when you're providing the appropriate scratchers, then the second part is to make the places you don't want them scratching to be unappealing to them, so that they will just naturally choose on their own to scratch the scratching post instead of your couch. So I like to use soft, fluffy blankets to cover the armrests of the furniture. You can also use Sticky Paws, which is a double-sided sticky tape. I prefer the blankets because most people have blankets in the home and you don't have to go out and buy anything, and it's an easy solution. But you could certainly try Sticky Paws if you prefer. Some cats do try to chew on it if they enjoy the texture of plastic. So it just depends on your cat. My long-haired cat, the Sticky Paws worked wonders. He touched it once and was like, nope, and he never touched the couch again. But this guy back here, he thought it was a snack. So for him, I had to use the blankets. And that's why I suggest both are possible options that you could use. And the great thing about that is then the cat's naturally going to want to use the scratcher instead. And you can reinforce that behavior. You can reward them with treats or playtime, or you can even scratch on the scratcher yourself. And that tends to get them all riled up and excited. And it's really fun. And that way you don't have to be the bad guy. You don't have to punish them. There's no squirt bottle, anything like that. That tends to not work anyway, because then the cat just does whatever they want when you're not home. So, or they become afraid of you and they flinch every time you reach for the squirt bottle, and you don't need that kind of relationship dynamic with your new kitty. So that's my suggestions. And of course you can remove the blankets from the couch over time as the cat gets established in the habit of scratching the right surface. All right, so safe outdoor access. A couple great options are catios, which they come in all shapes and sizes and budgets. If you want to learn more about catios, the website catssafeathome.org has all sorts of great ideas and resources. They actually just finished their annual catio tour in Portland last weekend, which was awesome. And if you want to explore harness and leash training, it's definitely a process where you want to take your time. A lot of times folks will just put the harness onto their kitty and then the kitty like lays down on the floor and acts all helpless, and it looks funny, but the cat's probably pretty scared. So in order to avoid traumatizing your kitty, you really need to take your time if you want to teach them to use a harness and leash. And my favorite resource for harness and leash and other kinds of training is Cat School. It's a YouTube channel. She's got a whole lot of really quick videos that show fantastic examples of stuff you can teach your cats. Honestly, I find that kids sometimes are easier to teach than our adult friends. The biggest tip I would just give them is to let the cat come to them so that the cat doesn't feel trapped. And if they have one of those wand toys they can drag across the floor, that's a great way to get them started. Okay, this is the fun part. Introductions with other pets. So you may have heard the standard recommendations of introducing pets on like either side of the door, feeding them, getting them closer and closer to one another. And I find that that works, but sometimes it can create stress when we're trying to get them closer to each other and they really just want to eat that food and run away. So what I recommend, and I found works better, is creating a buffer zone by using like 2 baby gates. So creating that buffer zone with the 2 baby gates just takes all the pressure off so that they're never like face to face in a stare down defending the boundaries of their territory. It just creates a much easier introduction. They know the other one's out there, but it's not a threat. And nothing scary is going to come through the door when you open the door to the safe room because there's nothing immediately right on the other side of the gate. So I found it really helps. And then once you see that the new cat is completely at ease in their safe room, meaning you open the door, they trot right over to see you, they relax, they lay down on the floor, they sprawl out, they'll close their eyes and purr when you pet them, they're totally relaxed. Then you can move on to phase 2, where you start letting them explore other parts of your house. But what I would do at that time is just grab one of their favorite toys, go into another room, close the door, and leave the safe room open for your resident pet to explore. That way you're not like restricting or limiting your resident pet's territory because they're used to having free reign over the whole house. And you take the new pet into another room and play with them for 10-15 minutes and then have them go back in their safe room. So that way they're getting familiar with other parts of your house, but in a fun and non-threatening way. And you can also, during that same time, start playing the peekaboo game, which is where you drape blankets over those baby gates, and then you pull back the corner and the cat will look out, and then you call their name, and in theory, they should turn and look at you. If they can't turn away from the gate and they just keep staring at it, then that usually means that they're too scared. And so you need to go ahead and pull the curtain closed. But ideally, over time, you should be able to open that curtain for longer and farther until they can see whatever's on the other side. And you actually want to play this game with your resident pets too, because the new cat is a new experience for them as well. When they can both have the curtains fully pulled back and be aware of each other and they don't seem stressed, so you'll be looking for relaxed body language, like eyes in normal position, whiskers and ears normal position, tail normal position, no like lashing tail or hissing or flattened ears or dilated eyes. If you see any of that, then we need to take a step back and slow down because we want it to be as low stress as possible. When they're able to see each other and they don't seem stressed about it, then we can move on to supervised interactions in the same room, but they could be on other sides of the room, both each playing with their own toy or engaging in their own training session. They don't need to interact with each other directly. If they start to approach each other, watch for that happy, positive body language of like tail straight up and trilling or purring at each other, any signs of aggression or stress, and you just want to go ahead and distract them and put them back in their safe room, try again later. Eventually, you'll be able to have them be alone together for longer and longer periods of time until you totally trust them to be together in your home. If you're ever not sure, just put them back in the safe room for a little while. It's always better to end on a positive note than it is to push your luck and to create stress. Sound good? Any questions? How's this feel?
I'm excited.
Yeah? So we talked about the microchips already. We also recommend having collars and ID tags on your kitties, just because if they were to slip out, it's a nice visual reminder to people that that kitty does have a home. So when we're all done here, I will send you a follow-up email. You'll have my contact information in case you have any questions, or you can just email me cute pictures of your kitties, because that would make my day. I'm here to support you with any cat behavior related issues. If you do have health concerns, I will suggest that you call your vet. We're hoping this is going to be a happily ever after for everybody. But sometimes things change and it doesn't work out like we planned. So if that's the case, no judgment, reach out to me if you feel like that's the direction things are going. We'll see if we can resolve things first. Oftentimes we can, but if we can't, reach out to me and we can look at the return process. Finally, as you're doing your checkout, you can do donations at that point in time, which is always welcome because our adoption fees only cover a portion of our expenses. And then there's a list of some other ways to support CAT. My favorite one is Amazon Smile because I shop online. And that is it. Any questions you can think of that we didn't cover?
Not from me.
I have a question about creating a safe place for your cat and your
Mhm.
safe room.
Mhm.
So we were thinking about using this room as our safe room, but there's like a computer and cords. Are cords and electronics a dangerous thing for kittens, or kind of depends
Yes,
on the
they
kitten?
can be. Yeah,
Yeah.
they can be. That's a really great question. Thank you for that question. I think they make cord covers in office stores that you can purchase to make them not as loose and tangly.
Mhm.
And then if there are portions that are exposed, what you could use is a product that's called bitter apple spray, which is really great for just making things that look like toys taste unappealing so that the kitty doesn't want to chew on them. Did either of you want to opt for the pain medications for the 3 days following surgery?
I do.
Okay, excellent. Then
Yeah, I will too.
Okay. Always better off to have it than to not and discover that you need it. So this is going to be a medication that's called buprenorphine, and it's going to be for the 3 days following surgery. It's going to be pre-measured for you into little syringes. It's twice a day for the 3 days. So you should be getting like 6 syringes when you pick up your kittens. So these are the instructions on how to administer it. Buprenorphine is an opioid drug used for pain control. Opioids are controlled substances and prescriptions are closely regulated. In a veterinary hospital, the medication must be kept under lock and key and dispensing is closely monitored. Buprenorphine is given in the cheek pouch or under the tongue, so it's absorbed through the oral mucosa. It does not need to be swallowed and is less effective if given that way. It has a bitter taste. Possible adverse effects are sleepiness, constipation, restlessness, or agitation. Give this medication exactly as prescribed. Notify your vet of any other medications your pet is on before giving this medication. Stop giving this medication and call your vet immediately if your pet is extremely sleepy and is difficult to wake up. Keep away from children and animals. Notify your veterinarian if your medication is missing. This drug may be abused by humans. Do not leave the medication out. It is light sensitive. It should be stored in a dark prescription bottle. Do not allow any unauthorized use of this medication by other people in the household. Cool? Awesome. And what I found is one of the easiest ways to give the medications is I actually make meds time into a game for the kittens. That way it doesn't become a battle of trying to hold the cat still and then squirt the meds in their mouth and maybe you miss. So what I do is I get a canned food that has a lot of juices, and I will take a syringe, no needle or anything like that, just a basic syringe, and suck up some of the tasty gravy and juices from the canned food, and then get them used to taking that from a syringe as a treat. And if they get used to that, then the one time that they get like 2 tasty ones and then a weird one and then another tasty one, then it's almost like it was just the rotten berry in the bowl, as opposed to like their very first experience with a syringe is negative. Because if their very first experience is negative, then they're gonna hit the brakes the next time. But if the majority of their experiences have been positive, then they're not going to be resistant to it. They'll just think that it was a weird anomaly of an experience, if that makes sense.
That's brilliant.
I've found a lot of success with that. And that way, you know, someday when your cat is 19 years old and probably needs some kind of vitamins or medication, it doesn't have to be a battle. Same thing with a carrier. If the carrier becomes a safe place for them to hide and to hang out and take a nap, then the one time that they have to go in it and go to the vet, it's not that big of an issue. But if you only get it out of the closet once a year, then it's like, dun, 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 and they're going to run away. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for your time. I'm going to go ahead and approve you in the online system. So you should see an email come through about that in just a moment, as well as a follow-up email from me that you can reach out if you have any questions. Haley, you're going to get a $20 discount because you're adopting 2 kittens from the same litter. So that will be happening shortly. And so Shawnice, you're going to take care of the FELV testing at your own veterinary practice. So you're all set. All right, so you can go ahead and sign off. And Haley, if you're wanting to get the FELV testing paid for and done at CAT, then you can stay on this call and we'll get that done next.